These are the exercises for Futato, chapter 34. Parsing in section A. Number 1, higlita. Our first consonant, he, we should suspect that's a prefix. It has he with I class. We can tell from the ending, the ta ending, that is going to be the second masculine singular of a perfect conjugation. We don't know yet what pattern or stem we have, so we have to ask ourselves, okay, this could be a prefix. What are our next consonant? Gimel, Lamed, Yod. Again, you should be thinking, what's my lemma? This is going to be from Gala, and that would be easy for you to identify if you remember that with third he verbs. The he will become a Yod before a consonantal ending. So that tells us what our parsing is. We have a hifil perfect second masculine singular from Gala. Number 2, hakimota. We have a he again. Again, as you know, the question here, is this a prefix? This one is a little tougher, and again, chapter 34 here. Again, we're dealing with weak verbs in this chapter in the hifil. And so one of the weak verbs that we have is the hollow verb. So right here, again, we should just go through the process. Well, the he could be a prefix, and then what would we have for our lemma? Well, we'd have kof and mem. That might trigger us, again, I would say basically because of vocabulary at this point, but also, in all honesty, we're in chapter 34 and we know that we've had hollow verbs here, so that would probably be enough in the case of the exercises to jar our minds and say, okay, I have a hollow here, I have kum as my lemma. If that wasn't enough, this addition of o, ta, before the ending, we can see from the ending we have second masculine singular again in a perfect. We just don't know the stem or the pattern yet. But before the consonantal ending, there will be a helper vowel, because you can't. You could have hakim ta. Again, you'd have run those two consonants up against each other, but Hebrew will typically add a helping vowel here. Again, that may or may not help, but once you know the suffix, the ta, okay, and you, again, looking at the he, you don't have hakam as a lemma, so you have to suspect this is a prefix. Once you get past that point, again, the he prefix is only going to be a prefix for the hifil, and we haven't gotten the ho file yet. It'll also be used for the ho file, but those are, of all the stems, those are probably the easiest to spot, the easiest tell. But you have a prefix here, and again, what's left, you should be able to discern a lemma from your knowledge of vocabulary. So what we have here is the same parsing as above, hifil perfect second masculine singular, but now we're having it with a hollow lemma. Number 3, heikinu. He, is that a prefix? It certainly could be. We have an I class vowel this time. Up here we had a shva because of this ending, so we didn't get any real help with the vowel up here, but here we do. He with I class vowel, that's hifil. And you can tell by the ending, again, that we're dealing with a plural form here. Now the lemma, kaf, and nun, again, if you know your vocab, it's kun, so you know you're dealing with a hollow. So he with I class, hifil perfect, third common plural. The vowel ending tells us it's third common plural, and our lemma is kun. Number 4, yaniku. Yaniku. First consonant, yod. Is that a prefix? Well, it certainly could be. Do we have a discernible lemma? Well, we have nun, and then chet. Again, we're always considering the hirik yod here as a vowel. So does that help us with our vocabulary? Do we have, you either have to think now at this point, something either dropped from the front, something either dropped at the end, or something dropped in the middle. Again, these are weak verbs. We know it's not the front because there's no dagesh. Again, could be something. Do we have nakah, like a third he? Do we have that? Well, not really in our vocabulary. And so by process of elimination for the purposes of the exercises, you're thinking hollow verbs, so nuach. And if that's the case, then the yod is indeed a prefix. And then the ending will tell us it's third masculine plural. So we have a hifil imperfect third masculine plural from nuach. Number 5, yagleh. Now, first consonant, yod, is that a prefix? Certainly could be. Do we have a discernible lemma? Galah, yes we do. So the yod is a prefix. And we have A class vowel, I class. So that should be a dead giveaway for hifil imperfect. And there's no further ending here, so it's third masculine singular from galah. Number 6, haglot. Hey, is that a prefix? Well, it certainly could be. We have gimel, lamed, and then the ot. Again, the ot is either going to be a feminine plural ending for a participle because we're dealing with a verbal lemma, or it could be the infinitive construct. Now, we know it's not a participle because there's no mem prefix. That's what we're going to have in PL and in hifil. And we're also going to have it with pual and hofal. So we know we're not dealing with a participle here. It wouldn't make any sense for a cal participle either. Cal participles don't add prefixes. And they would also have an O vowel. So again, we can eliminate all these things, and that really leaves an infinitive construct. And the ot ending for infinitive constructs are especially frequent with third hey verbs. So galah, again, that would be a lemma we know. So what we have here is a hifil infinitive construct from galah. Number 7, mekim. Now here we have a mem. Okay, is this a prefix? Well, it could be. Again, mem is one of our prefix candidates. It would indicate a participle. Do we have a discernible lemma? Well, chances are if you see kim, you're going to, especially in this chapter, know that, okay, my lemma is kum. That means we do have a prefix here, and we have a mem prefix with I class. Again, that's going to telegraph hifil. Now the tricky part here is the mem here at the end for im is part of the lemma. Remember, our lemma is kum, so this is not a masculine plural ending. If it was, we'd have a mekimim, but this is not part of the ending. It's actually part of the lemma. And so what we have here is a hifil participle, but it's singular. It's masculine singular. Number 8, maglim. Mem, is it a prefix? Well, it certainly could be. Gimel, lamed, yod, we have im ending. So again, that's going to suggest a participle if we know gimel, lamed, if we recognize this as our third hey lemma, galah. That would mean this is a plural participial form because galah is a verbal lemma. And the mem out front here with A class would be a telltale sign for a hifil participle. So we have a hifil participle masculine plural from galah. Number 9, hakin. Is the hey a prefix? Well, it could be. Do we have a discernible lemma? We have kaf and nun. Again, if we know our vocab, kun is a hollow lemma. So we have a lemma. That means the hey is a prefix. We have hey with A class vowel. Now, since we know it's not an imperfect, well then what are our options? Well, if this was a perfect, look at number 7 up here. With hollows, you're going to get an I class vowel with your prefix, and we do not have that. So we can rule out a participle here. We could rule out really a perfect, again, for the same reason. So what are we left with? Well, we're left with think about it, we're left with an H, a hey prefix, with A class, and then followed by an I class, but the I class vowel is long. It's hirik yod, it's not seireh. And so that is sort of a classic assemblage for the hifil infinitive construct. Again, the lemma is kun. 10, hagleh. Same issue here. We have hey, is it a prefix? Well, do I have a discernible lemma? Galah, yes I do. So we know this hey is a prefix, but it's A class. And we know it's not imperfect because this is not an imperfect prefix. It's not a perfect. Again, we're going to have an I class vowel there. We know it's not a participle because we'd have a mem prefix in that case. So what's left? We have imperatives or infinitives. And in this case, it could be either an imperative, second masculine singular, or an infinitive absolute. So either one with the tsera vowel right here, that would rule out infinitive construct, because again, 99% of the time, the infinitive construct is going to have this longer Kyrich Yod vowel. So either a Hifil imperative second masculine singular or a Hifil infinitive absolute from Galah. 34b, more parsing. Again, these are all weak verbs, so they're a little tougher, a little trickier. Number 1, hika. We have hey. Again, is that a prefix? Well, it might be. What do we have left? Well, we have kaf and hey, so we don't have much left here, but we have a dagesh here. And the dagesh is after a full vowel sound. So again, that typically is going to indicate that a first noon here has assimilated into the kaf. And is nakah a lemma we know? Well, yes, it is. Again, if we know our vocabulary, so if we can get the lemma, then we know that this hey is indeed a prefix, and it has I class. So hey prefix with I class telegraphs what? Hifil perfect. And there's no further ending out here. So we have a Hifil perfect third masculine singular from nakah. Number 2, hoda. Hey, okay, is this a prefix? Well, do we have a discernible lemma following? We have vav, dalet, hey. And again, when you're seeing this vav, especially when it comes with the hey at the beginning, you're suspecting we're going to have a first yod lemma here, because some of those first yod lemmas can take that vav. So that, again, should be a sign to you, something to trigger your mind. And so if we presume we have yada here, and it's showing its initial vav with hey, ho, again, this as we saw in lesson 33, ho is going to be a telegraph for Hifil. And so the only question is, well, okay, if we have a Hifil, we know it's from yada. What do we have here? I mean, what's the parsing? And we're going to have a perfect third masculine singular because there's nothing after it. You might say, well, I was thinking a Hifil participle, ending feminine singular participle ending with comets hey. No, the Hifil participles will have a mem prefix. We do not have a mem prefix here, so you can rule that out. Again, you should know it well enough that you know what you should have if you're guessing a particular thing. And if you don't have it, then chances are you need to make a different kind of deduction, different guess. Number 3, yakeh. Yod, is it a prefix? Well, it could be. It's one of the candidates. We have kaf and hey again, just like we have with number 1. We have that dagesh. That's important. So we know that our lemma is nakah. So we have a prefix yod with A class followed by I class. That is going to be a Hifil imperfect, A class, I class. And it's going to be third masculine singular because there's no further ending here. Yodeh. Okay, look at this. We've got same issue. Yod, is that a prefix? Could be. Do I have a discernible lemma? Vav, dalet, hey. Just like with number 2. Again, look at what we're looking at. Just like with number 2, okay, that's a first yod verb, but it's one of those kind that first yod is going to show up as a vav. So if you can do all that deductive reasoning, you will again arrive at Hifil imperfect third masculine singular. Now look at what Futato's done here with this exercise. The first 2 are exactly the same parsing, but the weak lemma, the type of lemma, dictates the form. First noon, you have assimilation, and you have your clear hi prefix, again, for the Hifil. Next one, you had that first yod issue, so you have ho. Here, we have these 2 are exactly the same as well. Hifil imperfect, third masculine singular. Same prefix, but again, the lemma dictates the pattern. We have first noon here, nakah, that's how it's going to be marked. And here with number 4, we have yada, a first yod lemma. So it's going to change the pattern because this vav is going to come into play. So if you remember from chapter 33, I said when you see ho, when you see yo, again, or any imperfect consonant with the o vowel, think Hifil. Number 5, modeh. Here we go again. Mem, is it a prefix? Certainly could be. It's one of our candidates. By now you can tell what the lemma is. We've got yada with the first yod showing up as the vav. And we've got a mem prefix, mo, that's going to be a Hifil participle. So the only issue is, what's the rest of the parsing? Masculine singular. If it was moda, comma te, it would be feminine singular, but it's modeh, so we have masculine singular. Makeh, again, I think you can guess what this parsing is going to be just by Futato's patterns here. Mem, we have a mem prefix. We have this dagesh that tells us we're dealing with a first noon lemma, nakah, and again the rest of it is the same. It's just again the lemma is dictating the form. Hifil participle masculine singular from nakah. Number 7, hakot, hey with a class. Is it a prefix? Well, it might be. It's one of our candidates, but what do we have left? Well, we don't have much left. We've got a kaf and then ot. Again, ot, you should be thinking either feminine plural participle, and the much more common will be infinitive construct of a third hey verb. So if you were able to take your deductions that far, and you think, well, is this a third hey verb? We'd have kaf and hey. What would go out front? Oh, okay, I see the dagesh, and it's after a full vowel sound. That means we have a noon assimilation, nakah. Bingo, there is our lemma, nakah. And that means the hey here is a prefix with a class, an ot ending. It can only be a hifil infinitive construct from nakah. Hodot, okay, we have the same sort of issue going on here. Look at the ending, ot. We have ho, so we're thinking hifil. It is not a participle. This cannot be a hifil feminine plural participle, and you should know immediately why it can't be. Because participles in the hifil will have a mem prefix. So you can rule it out. The only thing you're going to have with the ot ending is an infinitive construct of a third hey verb. And so your first two consonants will be vav dalet hey or yod dalet hey. Again, process of elimination. Hifil infinitive construct from yada. Hodeh, number 9. Be thinking hifil. We know it's from yada. That tsere is going to either be, again, imperative or infinitive absolute, the shorter I vowel. Second masculine singular because there's no further ending, or, of course, infinitive absolute has no ending. And finally, number 10, hake. Here we go with the, again, by this time you should know what lemma you're dealing with. You have hey prefix with a class. Your next is I class. The dagesh will tell you that you have noon assimilation. That's nakah. So hey prefix a class I class. I think you can guess from Futato's patterning. Again, this is also either imperative second masculine singular or infinitive absolute. Again, the lemma, the type of lemma dictates the form. So I hope you see, especially in this exercise, how important it is to memorize your tells, your giveaways, the things that the form, as you look at it, will tell you. Again, everything's there. It's important. It can telegraph information to you. 34E means C and D in this set of exercises. You can work through yourself and discern, again, through the answer key, what the issues are, why the answer is what it is. We'll move to parsing here, more parsing, 34E. Yo read, number 1. Yo, that should just scream hifil. Okay, and specifically hifil with a yod prefix. So we know we've got a hifil imperfect. We know our lemma is yarad. Should be easy. Hifil imperfect, third masculine singular. Again, no further ending. Number 2, yekaseh. This should be just point blank easy. Yod prefix, is it? How do we know it's a prefix? Well, we have a discernible lemma. Kasa, we know our vocabulary. Yod prefix with shava, followed by a class, can only be one thing. PL imperfect, and again, it's third masculine singular because there's no further ending. Bata, again, the ta at the ending tells you have a perfect and second masculine singular. So what would the lemma be? Well, the lemma is going to be bo. This is a little harder. It's going to be a hollow lemma, bo. But in the perfect, remember, hollows will take the A class vowel. So we have a cal perfect. There's nothing that says PL here. There's nothing that says hifil, nothing like that. We have a cal perfect, second masculine singular from bo. Number 4, sholeach. we have what? Do we have a discernible lemma? We don't have a prefix. Shin is not a prefix. Shalak, yep, that's a lemma we know. Look at the pattern. Sho. Our first vowel is O. Haven't seen one of these in a while. But that is a cal participle, masculine singular. There's no further ending. Number 5, debar T. Now the T at the end should tell you immediately you have a perfect form here, and it's first common singular. So what about the rest of it? We have an I class, first vowel, then we have dagesh, we have doubling. Okay, that should telegraph to you immediately PL, perfect first common singular. It's not Hifil because we don't have an H. We don't have a He out here. Okay, so it's not Hifil perfect. There's no He. Number 6, Yitenu. Again, this should be one that you've almost got memorized. Yod, is it a prefix? Well, it could be. We have Tav, Nun, but we have our Dagesh after a full vowel sound, Nun assimilation. That means our lemma is Natan, which means the Yod is a prefix, and the vowel ending tells us it's third masculine plural. So we've got cal imperfect, third masculine plural, Natan. Number 7, Teled. This should be drop dead easy as well. The Tav, yeah, that could be a prefix. I don't know. There's nothing else that can really give me a clue. Yes, there is. Tsera, tsera. That is the pattern for cal imperfect of first yod verbs. Just that's what it is. Tsera, tsera is a dead giveaway. The Tav here could either be third feminine singular or second masculine singular because there's no additional ending with that Tav prefix. Lastly, kakat. Again, the at ending might give this one to you, but if this was segol tav, you'd know it was an infinitive construct. Well, this is the same thing. Patak tav. When you have the vowels the same with tav, it's going to be an infinitive construct. It's A class here because of this guttural, the chet. The only question is, what's the lemma? This is a cal infinitive construct. There's no reason to think PL. There's no doubling, no vowel lengthening here to compensate for the guttural. There's no Hifil. There's no prefix. It's a cal infinitive construct, but what's the lemma? This is a little tougher. Again, you just have to know this one because it's odd. It's from lakak. It will lose, again, that lamed, like first noon verbs get lost. So cal infinitive construct. 34F, translation. We have Heiniach Eloheinu Lanu. Let's just stop there. Our first form is a verb. We have a he. Again, you see the he? Is that a prefix? Is it a prefix? Do I have a verbal? Well, let's just assume it's a prefix here. The tsera is kind of a nice clue because it's an I-class vowel. He with I-class. If you know that this is a verb lemma, you have a hifil right here. The lemma here is nuach. So we've got he, I-class. Again, I-class here. We're going to have a hifil form, and it's going to be a hifil perfect. Eloheinu, our God. So nuach means to give rest or to rest or something to that effect. Be at peace. But it's hifil, so it's causative. So Eloheinu, our God, gave rest lanu to us. Our God gave us rest. Michal, from all oyavenu. Oyavim would be the plural form, enemies. It becomes tsarayod in the construct form when a suffix is added. So from all our enemies. Our God gave us rest from all our enemies. And then we have vav, patak, dagesh. Sure sign of a vav consecutive, a vav relative, which means, again, this is going to be an imperfect form. We've got the yod prefix. What's our lemma? Vav, shin, bet. Yashav, it's just that's the kind of first yod verb that's going to take that vav in first position. Yashav, to sit or to dwell, something like that. So our God gave us rest from all our enemies, and he, because this is third masculine singular, there's no further ending. And he what? We have yo. This is a hifil. It's a hifil vav consecutive. So again, there's this causative element. So something like he settled us, otanu, direct object marker with suffix. He settled us, or he caused us to dwell. Be'eretz tova, in a good land. It's a good land because we have an adjective here and a noun. There's no definite article in front of the adjective or associated with the noun under bet. This would be ba, again, if it was a definite article. So in a good land. He settled us in a good land, ushmo, and shemo, and his name, ne haleo leolam. Okay, look at the form noon. Is that a prefix? Am I looking at a prefixed verb? Well, let's just try it out. Noon, is that a prefix? Well, it could be. It's one of our candidates. Halal, discernible lemma. Okay, I know halal is a verb. I know what it means. It means to praise. So we have a prefix, imperfect prefix with shava, followed by a class and the telltale doubling. This is a PL. This is a PL imperfect first common plural. So, and his name we will praise forever. Okay, our God gave us rest from all our enemies, and he settled us in a good land, and we will praise his name forever. Number 2, we have acharei, haglot Adonai et amo. This one's a little trickier. It's actually pretty tricky. Acharei, if you know your vocab, that's after. So it's a preposition. Now that might be a clue. Again, this one's tougher because usually we're thinking of prepositions as being prefixed to infinitive constructs. Now I've given it away. This is an infinitive construct here. Look at haglot. Hey, is that a prefix? Well, it might be. Galot, again, ot is either a feminine plural participle or infinitive construct of a third hey verb. Gala, there's my third hey verb. So we have an infinitive construct here in the Hifil, but we don't have a prefixed preposition. You know, we're used to seeing lamed or bet or kaf prefixed to a preposition. And you know why we don't have that here? Because we can't add a preposition when there's a hey here. The hey would disappear. Now that might work with a definite article. Again, like up here, look up at number 1, bet eretz. We could have ba aretz, where the bet would take the place of the hey in the definite article, and then it would just change to a comets to show the definite article. That doesn't happen here because the hey here is indispensable to telegraphing which verb stem, which verb pattern you have. So Hebrew does not allow this hey to just be absorbed and subsumed and done away with. It has to remain. And so you have to have a detached preposition, a separated preposition out here. And that's what we have. The preposition would be acharim, but it's in the construct form because it's attached, again, to other words here. So we've got after, and then an infinitive construct, Hifil infinitive construct. And what usually happens with prefixed infinitive constructs, at the end they'll usually have their subject appended as a suffix or have a stated noun. And that's what we have here. We have a stated noun. So watch this. We have here, after the Lord exiled. Exiled. Again, this is the verbal gala in the Hifil means to send into exile. Remember that from your vocabulary. This is tough because you've got preposition, infinitive construct, subject. It's just that they're all detached, so that's what makes it harder. So after the Lord exiled et amo, his people, to Eretz acheret, a land another, to another land, vayashuvu, vav patak dagesh. Okay, so look at what we've got here. We've got a vav consecutive, a vav relative, which means this yod here is a prefix. Then the long U vowel, this is going to be a third masculine plural, imperfect form, but again, we're going to parse it as vav relative. From what? What's the lemma? Shuv, okay, to turn or return. Okay, so back to the beginning. After the Lord exiled his people, et amo, to another land, we'll just translate this then instead of and, then they turned Mikal, from all avonotehem. Avonot is iniquities, and it has a suffix. From all their iniquities. And then we have another vav relative here. How do we know? We have vav patak dagesh. Again, we have here the same lemma, shuv, but we don't have the u vowel here because we have third masculine singular here. And again, in vav, relative vav consecutive forms, the vowel here will shorten. So this is really a tricky one, number 2 here. So, you know, they turn from all their iniquities, and he what? He returned them. Okay, shuv is to turn or return. You wouldn't say he turned, but he returned them to Artsam, to their land. He brought them back out of exile. So here we go. After the Lord exiled his people to another country, they turned from all their iniquities, so he returned them to their land. For some reason, Futato translates Eretz as country and land in the same sentence, but that's okay. Number 3. Uvayom hahu, and bayom hahu, in that day. We have day with preposition. Note the patach here and the dagesh. This is a bet replacing the definite article. Here we have a definite article on this demonstrative. It's functioning as an adjective, so we have agreement in gender, number, and definiteness. And in that day, yoru ha'avot et Benechem. Well, Yoru, boy, what in the world is that? Well, boy, Futato is really pulling out all the stops here. He's giving you some really tough ones. You should look at yo and think what? Hifil imperfect. Well, if that's the case, if the yod here is a prefix, if it's an imperfect, then we've got here what's our lemma? We've got vav, resh, and then nothing. We've got our ending. But again, if you remember, third hey verb, vav resh hey, actually yod resh hey, yara. Okay, that should be a lemma you know from your vocabulary. The hey will drop before a vowel ending, third hey verb. Now we have some clarity, ha'avot, the fathers. Okay, so, and in that day, the fathers will what? What does yara mean? It means to, in the hifil, it means to teach. The fathers will teach et benehem, their sons. La da'at, lamed preposition attached to an infinitive construct, ends with tav. Okay, what's the lemma? Okay, these two consonants probably tell you the original lemma is yada, to know. Teach their sons to know et direct object marker Adonai, to know the Lord, saying, who? He, Adonenu, he is our Lord. Again, you have to supply a verb here in English. He, our Lord. He is our Lord. Va, avadav, and servants of him. And his servants, we, and we are his servants. Now you look at avadav, you know this is not a verb form how. The av. This is a suffix that goes on plural nouns. Okay? So, and his servants we are, and we are his servants. Key. Because Hoshea, there's a dot missing here, another typo in my digital edition. This is from Yasha. It's ho. You should be thinking hifil. Okay? Hifil from Yasha Otano. Because he delivered us. So, and in that day the fathers will teach their sons to know the Lord, saying, he is our Lord and we are his servants, because he has delivered us. Number 4, Hika hashomer et ha'ish. Let's stop there. Hika, hey, is that a prefix? Well, it could be. It's one of our candidates. Do I have a discernible lemma? Well, I have kaf and hey, so that looks like a third hey verb, but I don't have an initial consonant. Well, we have a dagesh after a full vowel sound, so noon assimilation, naka. Okay, I know that verb. It means to strike or to hit. So hashomer, the one who guards. This is a participle with a definite article. Definite article. Hey, patak dagesh. Shamar is a verb lemma. The first vowel is an O. Shomer, ha, shomer. The one who guards, or the one who keeps, basically the guard, or the guardian. Hika, struck. So the guard struck et ha'ish. Direct object marker, ha'ish. Struck the man al hapeh, upon hapeh, upon the mouth. Ki, because diber al hakohen hagadol, because diber, look at our form, there's no prefix out here. We've got an I vowel under the first consonant with doubling. That should telegraph PL, perfect, third masculine singular, because there's no further ending here. Because he spoke against Hakohen Hagadol, the high priest. Okay, we've got adjective, noun, agree in gender, number, definiteness. We have an attributive, modified translation situation. Because he spoke against the high priest, who or which, again we don't really know yet, Beveit Adonai, in the house of the Lord. Let's just say who was in the house of the Lord. Vayaser oto. Vav patak dagash. This is a vav consecutive, a vav relative, which means this yod is a prefix, which means we've got two consonants in our lemma. We have to decide again what our lemma is. We're dealing here with sur, a hollow, and so we've got a third masculine singular form from sur, but in the hifil, A class, I class. So, and he removed him, he sent him away. Okay, and here's our translation on the left. Lastly, Hebrew Bible excerpts from Psalm 136, verses 1 to 3 and verse 26. These are pretty straightforward. I'm going to let you do these on your own. The only problem you might have here is with the first one. Hodu, again, ho, you should be thinking hifil. And because you've got ho out here with a u vowel, this is going to be an imperative, but I won't tell you what person and number. It's an imperative. Ladonai ki tov. I'll just give you the first one. We've got give thanks, again, yada, this is from yada. We have hodu. It's a hifil imperative, second masculine plural, might as well just give it to you. Give thanks, you plural, you guys out there, give thanks to the Lord for good. Here in English you have to really supply for he is good. And then the rest of it you can figure out. Again, a lot of redundancy here in this particular psalm. So I'm going to let you deal with that. You can just open up your Bible in English and look and see if you got the translation correct. So that is the end of the exercises for Futato, chapter 34.